Good afternoon to every one of you. So grateful to be here. To EurAfrican group, the chair is here and members, the executive. I'm very grateful that I was invited out of all the ministers of education in Africa. I get the opportunity to address you, and I'm excited to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, and esteemed panelists who are going to be joining us, I come to you from the Republic of Ghana. After living in the United States of America for 26 years, don't ask me how I didn't lose my accent. I just didn't want to lose it. I wanted to sound African. I taught in America, high school, as a mathematics and computer science teacher. Then the United States of America began a process of ensuring that disadvantaged youth got the opportunity of quality education in their urban areas. So they brought up the concept of charter schools. These are public-private partnership institutions started by non-profit organizations, and the tuition is paid for by government. That's yours. Thank you. So you go into those schools in the urban areas of America, and they are offering you a better opportunity than your neighborhood public school, and parents didn't have to pay for anything. So after teaching for about 9 years, I just decided that if I could also be one of those who innovate in the education space in urban centers, something that would be very rewarding to me. I submitted a grant to the federal government, and I received $500,000 to begin the adventure of developing my first publicly funded charter school in the city of Los Angeles. It was a great adventure for an immigrant from Ghana. Decided that I would make a difference and that I would build schools that were better than the American public schools. A great challenge. But I began it. I went through public hearings, City Hall of Los Angeles, live on TV. People were watching me, looking at me and saying, where is that guy from? I was challenging the status quo that my schools be better than the public schools in the United States of America. I changed the graduation requirement for my students. I required that every student took a course in engineering in high school, and that they got immersed in STEM, because these were children coming from communities where they have never met an engineer. And I wanted them to have the opportunity in high school to meet one. So I began my school from junior high all the way from high school, changed the graduation requirement, required of them to come to schools on Saturdays, changed the status quo in such a way that at the end of their high school, I'll be able to send them to Harvard and Yale and to Stanford and to every university in the country, and the magic worked. Students began to come to me, parents lined up in front of my school, and they always told me, we want our children in your school because you are from Africa. And Africans are serious about education. They came in their numbers. My first school filled up. I moved to another side of town, built a second school. Then I moved on to another side of town, built a third school. Had about 200 workers that I paid every month. Then one day I heard that somebody was going to visit my school from Ghana. He happens to be the current president. At the time he was running for office and he had visited Los Angeles. He came to my school, saw the students, saw about 200 workers, and he said, how did you do this? And a Ghanaian coming to America to build schools for Americans, would you consider coming back to Ghana to help me change the education system? And I was saying to myself, you are not even president yet. and you are a politician. When you become president, you may even forget about the promise to Ghanaians of changing the education system. But he was able to convince me that for the first time in the history of Ghana, he was going to introduce free secondary education. Over 60 years of independence, and high school was not free. The poor ended their education at junior high school. He was able to assure me that he would do it. He would deliver on his promise. So I went home, discussed it with my family, and I decided that I also go back to Ghana and run for political office too, as a member of parliament. And I went, and I won. And I went to parliament as a member of parliament. He made me the deputy minister for education. We embarked on an adventure for the transformation of the Ghanaian education system. He promised and he delivered. he brought about free secondary education. What it meant was that there would be no space for all the students who wanted to go to school. I reminded myself of the study by the Brookings Institution that said that it was going to take 120 years for schools in developing countries to catch up with those in the developed world. And I said to myself, then I have to learn something from the developed world that I've been part of. In Los Angeles, in 1994, they changed high schools from 3 to 4 years. Limited facilities were available. They turned to year-round schooling, which meant that they divide the whole school into 3 tracks. 2 of them are in school at a time, 1 is on vacation. We use the school buildings around the clock, and Los Angeles was able to implement a 4-year secondary education. So I went to the president, I told the president, I know something about how you're able to educate more students with limited facilities. He said, what is it? I said, it's called year-round education. I was one of the teachers who taught in the system in Los Angeles. We can bring it to Africa. We can bring it to Ghana. He said, go ahead and do it. We used the year-round concept, and we're able to increase enrollment of students in high schools from 800,000 to the current 1.4 million with limited resources and facilities. We then securitize a tax source that brings about revenue for school infrastructure. With that securitization, we're able to raise 1.5 billion in Ghana. We use that money in building new schools. Now, about half of the senior high schools are no longer on the year-round schedule. They're on a single track, and we're moving on to eliminating double track, or what we call the year-round education from Ghana. But we're educating all our youth in senior high school, something that had never happened before. So when you talk about education, you are talking about access, you are talking about quality, you are talking about relevance. And education is an interesting space. If you want education to perform its rightful role in a developing country to transform your economic system, then you cannot just do one thing. You may be doing 10 things at the same time. So one of the things the government did and we implemented was ensuring that everybody who steps in a classroom to teach has a bachelor's degree. Hitherto, you only needed 2 years post-high school education plus 1 year practicum and you're a teacher. Now, in Ghana, you cannot be a teacher without a 4. So we changed the teacher preparation to 4-year bachelor's of education program for you to step into a classroom and to teach. But we didn't end there. Then we began to look at other things that we can do in terms of making education relevant to the needs of our nation. That took us to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education, STEM. Now we have schools in Ghana where all the population in the school focus on STEM. And of course, I know the concept of STEAM, so we are not leaving the arts behind as they embark on their STEM adventure. So what is happening in Ghana is that we built brand new 10 high schools where boarding schools. And you know, boarding is free too. So children are in school. 70% of our students are in boarding schools. They don't have to pay anything. Free tuition, free boarding, funded by the government from our own country's resources. We have to make sure that in deprived communities with no opportunity for secondary, they can be housed in boarding schools. So Ghana has embarked on an adventure to change the education system. But you see, getting the children to be in school, increasing access without quality, is like throwing away money. That is why we began with leadership, National Education Leadership Institute, approved by Cabinet, to make sure that we can train the next generation of school leaders in Ghana. Hitherto, you didn't have to know anything about school leadership, and you are in school, heading a school as a headmaster or as a principal of a school. That is fast becoming a thing of the past. So we need to improve also the teaching and learning process, create an environment where critical thinking will be fostered, not an environment where students are just memorizing facts to our teachers. So the era where memorization was the norm is now changing to an era where students will be challenged to think critically. Because we know we can't memorize ourselves out of poverty. You have to really think critically. You have to create an environment where children question the status quo and they're able to tell you, say, I don't understand this. I don't like how it was presented. I think I could have understood it better this way. I was in the American school system where our children would challenge you. And I think it was good for me. They really challenged me to make me a better teacher there, and now a better minister for education. You go into a classroom and you have to make sure that you really have prepared one. Because American students will say, sir, I see something there. Can you change it? And then look back and say, oh, thank you for really helping me become a better teacher. That is not the norm in Ghana, where students are supposed to be quiet. You walk into a classroom, you can hear a pin drop. You walk into a classroom as an adult, all the students will stand up for you. They will never sit down until you tell them to sit, which is good, but it's bad for our system because we are not innovating in our environment. The children are so respectful, and we take advantage of that not to really challenge them, to ask us questions, and to enable them to become critical thinkers that we need in this fourth industrial revolution. You know, in Africa, the first industrial revolution passes by, steam engine. The second, electricity. We're not able to participate. Then you move on to the third, with the advent of computers. Mainframe computers became laptops, and now they are on our watches. Africa did not fully participate in that. Now we are in the fourth industrial revolution, a time when the biological and the physical, the electronic are merging. Artificial intelligence is the norm. How do we ensure that Africa can participate in this? And I think it's critical that we have to begin to look at leapfrogging inequality, as Brookings Institution have said. So in terms of access, Ghana leapfrogging inequality by using year-round education to move all students into high schools. It's a leapfrogging strategy. In terms of quality of teaching and learning, we are building science labs, but we know it's not enough. So now we are moving to virtual labs. We are working with Open University UK, and they are developing lab activities that are simulated. So if you don't have a wet lab, you can still do science lab activities virtually. That is a leapfrogging opportunity. Then through research, we began to realize that we have to get the majority of our students into STEM. How do we do that? We have to also leapfrog in that space and begin to look at building high schools for girls in an environment where the girls will perform for us to create the critical mass of women who will be taken away from the farms and the rural communities into the modern era of engineering. We are looking at aerospace and aviation as an area of specialization. We have a girls' school that have designed this drone that flies 1 mile square and come back to land in a beautiful town in Ghana. Things are shifting. I'm excited that the President of the Republic is so much focused on education and wants education to be the most transformative aspect of the lives of the Ghanaian. And we are making giant strides. But we need partners. We need individuals who will join so that we can even do more for our dear nation. I was walking through this university, Nova University, and I was so excited to see buildings here put up by various businesses and old students, and it's so exciting when we all come together to bring about transformation. Africa is at that stage where we need partners who will come together. Ghana is welcoming you with open arms. We want to build partnership that ensure that we can truly transform that great nation called Ghana. And by the way, coming to Portugal for the first time, it reminds me of what I learned about Don Diego de Azambuja, that explorer who was the first white person that Ghanaians, then called Gold Coast, ever saw from Portugal. So it brings emotions for me to be here, knowing that our entry into the global society, from colonization to post-colonization onto our current era, was actually ushered in by a Portuguese. So Portugal, today I'm excited to have the opportunity to meet you and to be able to share what we are doing in Ghana. It's essential that we begin to also take a look, bridging the gap between deprived communities and those who are well-to-do. And that is why we are now analyzing data, research, for us to know the kind of backgrounds students are coming from and what kind of programs they are doing at our high schools, which they will eventually do at our universities. You know, in Ghana, the high school is regimented, and if you did not do science in high school as your major elective area, you are not allowed to do engineering or medicine in high school, at the university. It's not like high school education in other countries. So what we had to do was to find a way. But I also knew that coming from America, if I go to Ghana and I tell universities, allow students who didn't do science to have a pre-engineering experience and 1 year and then become engineers, I was going to have a serious backlash. Our people are very conservative. And I knew they were going to tell me, you can't bring America to Ghana, even though everybody wants to go to America, you know. But the refrain will be, why do you think what is happening in America should be brought to Ghana? So I decided not to ask or direct anybody to do pre-engineering. I rather set up a grant program. And I said, any university that wants to do a pre-engineering, allowing students who didn't do science to enter the engineering space through 1 year intensive science and mathematics program, please apply for the money. And everybody came. They applied. And today, we have pre-engineering program. Today, if students did not do science in high school, they can move on to become engineers in Ghana. So we are innovating ourselves out of those blocks and barriers that have held us back for many years to a point where we innovate ourselves to create a more robust education system which can then respond to the socioeconomic transformation need of our nation. And that is what education should be about, that you educate so that your people will be out of poverty. I believe that when we begin to believe in ourselves, when we begin to understand that everything is possible, everything works and becomes possible. If there was one thing I took away from America, it was the idea that everything is possible. That is what I got from America. In the United States of America, like Portugal, you believe to a large extent that everything is possible. That's why you innovate. That is why Don Diego de Azambuja explored and came to Ghana, because he believed everything was possible. So far as our education system enables us to think that everything is possible, everything will be possible in Ghana and in Africa. Thank you for your attention.